to see a sense of fear. I mean, because it's very real. It's like these champions even ago or earlier. And, you think about, I don't know all these things. Well, we've got enormous resources here. Real world, real people willing to give back to the profession. People here, how much drives once 80 something, 2.5 hours. 2.5 hours to get here. Mr. Foxworth has rehearsal this afternoon. Mr. Shane left rehearsal to get here. Finished at noon. And the thing about it is, I'm taking away your. I didn't say all that stuff. To get the jury will disregard this comment. But there are, believe it or not, in the fall on a beautiful day like this, there are other things you can do, including you. So I'm very, very pleased and encouraged that you, as our soon-to-be teachers, would give some time to come over here and learn from enormously talented and dedicated and knowledgeable people. So I'll be in and out this afternoon, but I appreciate you being here. Please ask questions. You have them cornered. You have them in here. The doors are closed or will be closed. So anyway, that's all I had to say about that. Now, Jackie Baker, B-A-Q-U-E-R.
No, okay. Welcome to the band director discussion. This is Miss Helen Adams. She's a co-director with her husband at Jackson County High School for over 20 years. They started a small band program, and it is expanded into 3 concert bands and a strong jazz program. She has taught middle school and high school. She is currently the GMEA Jazz Division Organization Chair. She coordinates guard activities for marching band, and she brings many students to our online clinic, and she drove from Jefferson, Georgia, approximately 8 miles away. All right, in the middle is Mr. Michael Foxworth. He currently teaches at Etowah High School. He retired 3 years ago after teaching 25 years of high school band in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. The Etowah band program has grown since he's been there, and he supports our music education by allowing our student teachers to do marching. And then over there is Mr. Garrett Chain. Currently teaches at Cherokee High School, has taught middle school and high school band. He is currently enrolled in our first graduate class in Reinhardt. This is his first year at Cherokee High School, and as a result of spirit, enthusiasm, and increased enrollment. And he had rehearsal today from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. And we have some certificates.
That's good. That means we're official now.
It's only official if it's on Facebook.
We'll let them begin.
And Mr. Chain brought with him his drum major this morning. So, welcome. Yes, it's good to see you again. So, it's all yours.
Is this a Baptist university?
Well, it depends.
Because they're all sitting in the back row.
Well, we're covering it's a recovery Baptist thing. Otherwise, known as the Methodist.
Okay. Well, that's okay. They do. I'm the oldest, so I guess that's why I'm in the middle here. And I've been teaching, this is my 39th year. I have a motto for the day, that there's no bad bands, there are only bad band directors. And I said that some years ago in South Carolina. Somebody mentioned, that was harsh, wasn't it? And I went, well, here's the problem. There are some bands that play poorly, and it's usually a result of the band director not working with the kids, because kids will do whatever you tell them to do. You know, it doesn't matter what color they are or what their socioeconomic background is. They do exactly what you tell them to do. And if you tell them wrong, they'll do wrong. If you tell them right, they'll do right. Now, if you inherit a band that doesn't play well, I won't say bad band, because if you inherit it, it's just your job to change it. Your job to make them a good band. And that's not always easy. And we all get tired and frustrated, but we can't quit working. We've worked a long time, and Garrett's been 11 years, you said. And so it's just, I enjoy coming to work every day. And that's why it's cool to be here. I sure don't have all the answers. I can talk all day, Am I right, Alex? I'm not talking. But it is my privilege to be here in Georgia now. And it's just some great things going on in here. And it's my pleasure to be here. But y'all want to say something else? We're going to go. Something that I use, a good friend of mine in Wando, South Carolina, Wando High School, is Scott Rush. And his book, Habits of a Successful Band Director, should be on your list. And I found out that Dr. Gregory already recommends that and tells you guys to do that. If you don't,
we use it about this way.
if you don't have that, then you're missing a good chance. Scott's done all the busy work for us. That's the most outstanding band in South Carolina, and it was founded on Concert Foundation, and that's why it's the most outstanding. It wasn't founded on marching band and decided to learn some concert music. And you know, I'm from South Carolina. Marching band is king, right? You know that? And I was the president of the South Carolina Band Association, and we fought to try to get those things balanced. But it's hard to do there. By the way, this is my marching band voice.
I have it too. It's a popular voice this time of year.
Mine's always raspy, but it's more raspy. But we don't yell.
They may not know. Do you guys know that there is, in South Carolina, there is a statewide marching contest? Like they crown an official state champion. Different
in each division. 1A, 2A, 3A, 4A, 5A.
So it's different.
And are you mandated to compete?
No, it's voluntary. But if you want to be recognized as one of the programs, you go there to do well. And I participated every year. But my goal was to be a superior band. And if you're a superior band, the trophies take care of themselves. But if you're not superior, you can forget it all. So your goal should be within yourself. Not that you got to go out here and win the Etowah Eagle Grand Champion Trophy, because that really doesn't mean anything. That's based on who showed up that day. The state championship in South Carolina was the same thing. If some band didn't go, that meant one of the better bands could be going to BOA, but they weren't at the state thing. And so somebody said, yes, I won. I'm glad because they weren't there. So that's kind of weird that you won out of default. But that's the way it works sometimes. I'm going to start. We've got some categories, and we'll go on job and job interviews. I taught at 4 high schools and 1 middle school. I started in middle school, and then I moved to the high school in Virginia. And then I came to South Carolina and taught at 3 high schools. Now this is 5 high schools for me in 39 years. But I've been in a lot of interviews myself, and interviewing choir directors, assistant band directors, middle school directors. And the biggest thing that I say is you have to prepare yourself, do your homework. What do you know about the school? You know, before I came down here, I came to interview for River Ridge. I did not come down for Etowah job. I interviewed for River Ridge. I never interviewed for Etowah. But somehow the 2 principals talked, and they switched the 2 band directors. And that was fine with me. But you just have to look and see what the deal is. If I'd gone to River Ridge, I would be teaching chorus, orchestra, and band. And I'm at Etowah, and I'm teaching only band. So actually, I'm happier, but it looked good because it was a new school. And I researched the principal, who was a middle school principal at that time, was moving to the high school. Know something about them if you can find their background. Know what classes that you would teach. If you know, new school, you're not really sure sometimes what's going to happen. You'll find out. Sometimes you don't find out until you start the school year. Oh, we changed it, by the way, we've got to tell you right. So, you may end up with 9th grade, who knows what. 2 years in Myrtle Beach, I taught global studies because I didn't have enough band classes. Those are
That
two of the most,
motivates you to build your band.
it sure does. Those are two of the most miserable years for 50 minutes a day that I've ever taught. The rest of the day was cool. And the only person that studied in that class was me. I had to study. Now I know the history that I missed when I was coming along. But you do. And when you get to school, it doesn't have enough. I teach 6th grade at Etowah, beginning band, because there weren't enough kids in the high school. This year, we've gone up 50 kids from last year. So the classes are bigger. We should get, last night, the 8th grade night, we had 50 more 8th graders there. Potential is to grow again. We probably won't get all 50, of course, but maybe we'll get 40. So it's going to grow. Eventually, I might not be able to do the 6th grade. I hope that I'll always be able to do the 6th grade, because I love doing it. I start them, and then I get to see them at the end. They know me, and there's a good, you solve some of the transition issues. But when you're looking for the job, find out all these things. And also, if you can come up with a curriculum idea of how you can improve their curriculum, even though you're a first-year teacher, you need to have an idea. See their curriculum, see what you can improve, and what you can do there. So those are the homework issues. You've got to spend, if you're going to go to 10 interviews, that means you've got a lot of work to do before you go to those interviews. You be prepared, be proactive. You know, don't do like marching band. I've got kids every day that react to everything going on. So they're behind everything. So don't do that.
Other things I was just going to mention about interviews, because we also, just because of the longevity that we've been teaching, often sit in on interviews for choral directors or middle school instrumental people. Principals nowadays want to make sure that you're up with the new things that are going on within Georgia, like the look to learn, all the new lingo. Make sure that you're aware. Principals are going to ask you, you know, in our interviews, they always ask you, you know, tell me about these terms. Have you heard these terms? They want to see where you are with understanding where Georgia's moving with its curriculum, you know, and as a statewide unit. Also, be aware that they're going to be asking you questions concerning, I don't want to use the word liability, but concerning the supervision of children. They may throw out a scenario and say, what would you do in this situation? It may have to do with a student arguing about a grade with a parent. It may have to do with something that might happen on a school trip, especially with us, because we do most of the traveling within a school. Sports and athletics and music groups do more traveling than anyone else in the school program. So they may throw some things out there. So you also need to be aware of the legalities, almost like school law, you know, liability issues of what you're ultimately responsible for, so that you can answer those questions correctly. And I'm not sure if y'all go into that in some of your education classes a little bit, but it's something that you need to be aware of, because you are responsible for those students in every way until they leave you to go home. And principals will often throw some kind of questioning about that. So be aware that you want to be able to answer that correctly.
Set the legal terms in local parentis,
Yeah.
in place of the parents.
Right.
And the question I got when I interviewed, I interviewed at River Ridge. Strange scenario. It was meant for me to come to Etowah. It's too strange how I got here. You know, can you believe that story about it was meant to be? You know, you interview the principal I was supposed to interview who wasn't there. The principal of Etowah's assistant people came over and interviewed me with Etowah's questions. And so when they decided they wanted to talk to me over the phone for 2 hours, here was a question I was asked. Never been asked this in my career. What instruments do you feel comfortable teaching? And I went, is that a trick question? Because I don't get the question. I'm a band director. What do you mean? What do I like to teach? What do you feel? He said, no. What do you feel comfortable teaching? I said, the band instruments. Well, are there any you would rule out? I went, no, I'm a band director. And so, you see, I didn't get it, and they didn't. Those were assistant principals. And later, it was because of an issue And Alex, some things I won't go into detail with, because Alex was a student at a while before I got there, was there last year. But because the principal didn't want the band director to hire someone to come in and teach a class, and he sit in the office. Makes sense. That's why I was asked that question. I thought it was a stupid question, but it wasn't a stupid question to the principal.
Yeah.
So he needed to know that I was there to teach all the classes. Duh, we know that. So that was the strangest question I've ever been asked. Garrett, you talk.
About interviewing, you've just gone through some interviews too.
Yeah, it's true. Very, very much like Mr. Foxworth. My journey to where I am now is an interesting journey. I did not. You got a job that you didn't interview for. I got a job that I didn't apply for. One of my students is here, but Jesse's in my confidence, so we'll move forward with this anyway. I didn't apply for the job at Cherokee. I applied for the job at Sequoia. I live in the county. I live in Cherokee County, and I had seen all the bands in the county, and I thought that Sequoia was the place for me. And I interviewed there, and I felt good about my chances to get the job, and they ended up hiring a good friend of mine instead, who had also been offered the Cherokee High School job. And obviously he couldn't take both. And he decided to take the Sequoia job. The Sequoia principal called the Cherokee principal to say, by the way, you're not going to get this candidate. Just as a courtesy, I've hired him for our band. And the Cherokee principal said, well, what do I do now? Because now I don't have a band director. And the Sequoia principal forwarded my name, and she called me and said, I'd like to interview you for the Cherokee High School position. I said, I didn't apply for that position. She said, I'd like to interview you anyway. And I came in and talked, and I believe it was meant to be. Within 5 minutes of talking to her, I knew that Cherokee is where I wanted to be and where I want to be for a long time. But I'll go back. I'll jump, rather than interviews, kind of piggybacking off of that. I'd like to talk a little bit about what jobs to look for and what jobs to accept. And that may seem a little bit like a stupid question right now, because there are so few jobs these days that you may just think, what the job I take is any job I can get. So this may be information to file away for future years after you get your first job, because I know how tough it is at the moment. And it won't be that way forever. I know some recent graduates from here who have had trouble finding jobs, and I know some of you are probably nervous about that. My advice there is, I'm a second generation band director. I grew up in bands, and it's cyclical. And I think that Michael and Helen would probably confirm that there are times where only 5 or 8 jobs come open in a state, and then there are years where 50 jobs come open in a state. We've had a couple lean years. It may not cycle back this spring, but there will be a lot of jobs. So when it comes time that you have a choice between jobs, here's my best advice for you. And this is advice that was given to me by Dr. Gregory, by Cecil Wilder, who's executive treasurer of GMEA, who was my band director in high school, and by my father. 2 things. Number 1, if you can get a job teaching younger students first, do it. I always wanted to be a high school band director. And all of my mentors said, teach middle school first, because you're teaching at the fundamental level. And when you come out of here, Mr. Foxworth said, I teach all the instruments. My guess is if you're an oboe player, you might not be that good at playing or teaching French horn right now. You've had some methods classes. Some of you may have my dad for a brass methods class. I see some nods. So you're learning some valuable things there. But it's very limited experience. You get like 1 day a week or 2 days a week. You really find out teaching at the middle school level, you really learn how to teach all the instruments and master your craft. So if you get a chance to teach beginners, that's really the way to go early on. And again, you may not have a choice. If you're a high school assistant director starting out, if you can start some beginners at the high school level, or if you can get time set in your schedule to be at the middle school, be around younger students early. That's my first advice in the choosing of jobs category. And my second piece of advice is, don't pick a school based on kids. This sort of echoes what Mr. Foxworth said. Kids are kids. There are some, I don't know how to put it any other way, there are some idiots around who say, you can't have success with those kids. They're too rich. They want to do other things. They want to play soccer. They won't come to band practice. Or those kids are too poor. You can't build a program there. Or those kids are too country. There's no one educated in that community. You can have great bands anywhere. I was around long enough. You guys know the name Alfred Watkins. Alfred's kind of an icon and a legend at Lassiter. there are people who attribute his success to the fact that he teaches in an affluent area in Cobb County. That's because they didn't hear his bands in the city of Atlanta 25 years ago before he went there. They haven't heard Helen and Miles' band with country kids out there and heard what those kids and seen what they do on the field. It doesn't, kids are kids. Now there are different challenges. When I taught at Sonoraville and opened the program in Gordon County, just to the north of here, had basically no budget to start with. For the county, I got $2,000 a year. We had to scrounge and fundraise. It was really a struggle with money. In a Cobb County school, you don't have quite those same struggles with money. But that doesn't mean you can't have a successful program there. That's just a different challenge that you face. So, if you're not picking a job based on kids, what's the single most important factor in determining where you should look for a job? Anybody?
Location?
What?
Location, where you're at?
What? Maybe, but I tell you, you better be willing to go where the job is right now. As few jobs. If the job is in Effingham County, you better be willing to go. If it's in Dade County, you better, starting out. Later on, maybe location. But right now, anybody?
What's your most comfortable teaching?
I don't think so.
Can I throw it?
Go.
I think I know what you're shooting.
All right.
It has to do with support of the administration.
Administration.
Because they can make or break your program. Whether you have funds or not, if your administration is going to be behind you because they know what band and music can do for their school, not only as a public relations group, but just as what it provides to the students. They know that music really does things for students. It makes them easier to teach in other areas. All the research about music, okay, and education. So if you have administrative support, they're going to go along with things that you might come and go, I'd like to do this. Well, we can make that work. Or I need this to be fixed for my scheduling so I can have these kids at this class. Well, we can see if our counselors can get that schedule work. If you have administrative support, then you're going to be able to do things to grow your program.
And you should know that within the hour interview.
Absolutely.
And they don't have to be knowledgeable about music either for you to find that out. That's why I knew Etowah would be a good mix for me. And I've taught at schools in South Carolina. I had 95% black students in my hometown. I had 95% white students 90 miles away in that town, with 2 or 3 black, white, and Hispanic. Then I taught in Myrtle Beach with 27 nationalities in the school. 27. We had kids from everywhere in the world. I had kids from all over South America in the band. And the band was never larger than 55. We still got ones in grade 5 music. At 145, 50 in the other schools. We still got grade 1s. It didn't matter. It didn't matter if they're black or white or Hispanic or from Russia. They do what you teach them to do. And that's exactly, if the environment for the school and what you do is good, it doesn't matter. I had somebody really offend me about asking me how did I teach those kids to do that. And the operative words there was those kids. What do you mean, those kids? Those are my kids. I was really peeved.
Support means a lot. We
Do your
have
kids.
probably, if you add up all the places that we as a 3 have taught, we could probably tell you stories about supportive administrations and not supportive administrations. I've been at the same school for 28 years. The same county system in different buildings, because we moved from K through 8 schools to middle schools, and then from middle schools and now pretty much full-time high school. But I'm back in the middle school this year because we lost an assistant. I'm having to teach at the middle school. And among all those different principals that you work with, there's some that wanted to work with you and there's some that didn't, and we can all tell stories. So going back to knowing that you could work with that administrator, because they're interviewing you, but you're also interviewing them. Can I work with this administrator, or are they going to give me support? So you need to go in with your list of questions of what they are going to be able to do. If I have this situation, would the administration support me? Would you help me with scheduling? You know, all those things that are important for building a band program. Have your list of questions.
Early in my career, my first 2 or 3 years teaching, I just wanted to do whatever I could to make my principals happy. I was so afraid and intimidated. I just didn't want to get fired. I didn't want a negative write-up. I didn't want, the principal was the boss. I treated him like a parent or something. And whatever they said, I just did. And then I saw some decisions made that were hurting my kids. And I realized that it's my job to advocate for my kids. And now I'm completely comfortable. I would not take a job as an administrator unless I felt comfortable calling them into their office or into my office and saying, look, I need this for my kids. You hired me to advocate for this program. And the decisions you have made are impacting my program negatively. What can we do together to solve it? If there's an administrator and I can't have that conversation with them because I'm afraid they're going to get angry or fire me or something, then I can't work for that person. Because I'm going to advocate for my kids and for my program.
You're the specialist. They
That's
should
right.
listen to you.
Right. You know, jumping off of what we've been talking about, I think the last topic, just about jobs, and then we're going to kind of get into more pedagogy, just talking about being a band director, is, and I know Michael's got things to say about this too, how do you keep your job? You got a job, how are you going to keep that job? Well, if you do things for the benefit of your students and for your school, and you're trying to work that, then they're not going to want to get rid of you unless you have problems in two areas. There's only two areas that you can screw up in to really lose your job: money handling and handling the students. Okay? Money handling is easy. It just has to all be out there. If you're working with a booster group, you need to have monthly, basically you're just printing your check ledger so people can see everything that's being spent, what it's being spent on. If you work with the booster group, you also want to have a yearly committee that audits the books, so to make sure that whoever's handling your books are doing it correctly and there's no money being gone that nobody knows about and all those things. We actually keep our band parent group money is actually an account at our high school. It's one of our high school accounts because thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars go through that account, and we want the security to know that it's being handled. I have to fill out check requests, and our principals have to sign it, but they know it's our money and we can spend it any way we want to. But that saves us from having a secretary that wants to run off with all your money. I taught at a school my very first year out of college where a treasurer had cast in some CD bonds that they had at a bank held for a uniform, to buy uniforms at future years. They were saving money for future needs. Well, people forgot about it. They forgot they even had a CD, and I was digging back through paperwork when I walked into the office and found it, went to the bank and asked what happened to it. Well, so-and-so signed for it to be cashed in. I went, oh, when did this happen? Just last spring. I went, oh, okay. We got that money back. You know, so you have to be careful with money. And then the student issue, it's common sense. But there are things that nowadays you get caught with. Let me just and I can kind of explain this with an example. We have a storage room in our band that we were going to turn into an area that was going to be used more for a practice area. The first thing I had my principal do was take down the solid door, put in a door with a half window. For supervision from the outside, and also if I'm ever in there with a student working individually, people can see that no inappropriate behavior or whatever's going on, so that there can never be accusations. You can lose your job over accusations. You know, it doesn't matter if it's true. So everything you do needs to be above board. So, you know, working with students. I'm sure Mike has something to say about that.
Well, through the years, we've seen more people fall. Read today's paper. It's in the orchestra director in Cobb County is going to jail. There's just no excuses for that. And we were young. We were there with young people. But you've got to just be above all that. And I'm going to add no relationship with the parents either. A good friend of mine got caught in the parking lot of his school late one night with a band booster press. Both drunk. He got fired. He got out of the business. I'm also at internet sites. Another friend, I didn't say good, lost his job. But unfortunately, he moved around 5 jobs before they finally said, either you go to jail or you surrender your certificate, which really shouldn't have been an option. he should have lost his certificate years ago. Either he got arrested for having a relationship with a senior in the school where his daughter was a senior. How embarrassing. How embarrassing. We could go on and on.
My daughter is
these
a
are not
second-year
isolated.
teacher in South Carolina. She's a second-year teacher in South Carolina. She went through, got her bachelor's, got her master's, so she's older. She's 25. But basically, when she got that job, she shut down everything on internet stuff. And she has a small little Facebook that just her friends from drum corps and people that she gets with. Nothing, and she'll have her kids all, friend me. Cell phone numbers, she basically doesn't give out her cell phone number to any of her students. You don't want any of that contact at that level with your students. Now, my cell phone goes to my parents' chaperones sometimes when we're on trips and things, but there's none of my students that can tell you my cell phone number of all the years that I've been teaching. You just
Mine
don't
do.
that.
Yeah, I was about to say,
Mine do, my cell phone,
And it's different, it's
But-
how you
but they
manage
don't-
it,
but
emergency stuff.
they don't call, they don't,
Yeah, it's not
they
like.
text me about band.
But as a
It's cool.
student, as a young person just coming out of college,
Yeah, you
you're
can-
really going to have to set limits on yourself in this information age of just shutting it down. Just get rid of whatever you've had before, start up something new, and contain it, because it will come back to bite you. It could be something simple, as you saw. I guess this was maybe a year and a half ago. Just pictures that were posted of a person who was on a vacation in Florida with some drinking and partying. It was on her Facebook, but she was a teacher. And people picked up on that, and her community didn't approve of it, and she lost her job. But it was on her time. But if your community, and I can say this because I'm coming from a small community, it's gotten more and more cityfied, if you want to use that word, because we have been rural, and Atlanta's moving out towards us, because I teach near Athens, and it's just growing out I-85. But there was a time when I was a young teacher, I wouldn't dare buy alcohol at the grocery stores in my county when my first 10 or 12 years teaching. I wouldn't dare do that because my community would not have accepted that. Now, I go to Clark County or Athens down at the university, if I wanted to have beer or something, that'd be different. But not where I was teaching, because you just couldn't do it. So you have to know your community too.
two broad impressions that sort of sum all this up for me, quotes and things that stick with me from my mentors through the years. It's okay to be friendly with your kids. You are not friends with your kid, with your kids. The worst thing you can do is be their friend. Be friendly. After they graduate, you can be their friend. Jesse and my relationship will change the day that he graduates. Then my job is no longer as his mentor. Then we can be friends. And if he ends up coming to school here, I hope to come to his concerts, and maybe he and I can go out to dinner afterwards or catch a movie or something after he graduates. But when he's my student, he's not my friend. I would hope that Jesse would tell you that we're friendly, but you have to have a level of respect there. So don't treat the kids as your friends, and it's easy to do that, especially your first couple of years teaching, because your age and their age are so close. But there needs to be a line of respect. And the second thing is that sort of sums all this up into a category. Teaching is a political position. You may not think you're going into politics. If you're going to be a band director or a coach, even at the middle school or beginning levels, it's a political position. Politics are involved in the hiring and firing of those positions. Politics are involved in the communities and the Board of Education and all of those things. And so you have to handle all of the same pitfalls that trap politicians can trap you. So you need to be above reproach in your personal life.
And make sure, a lot of you work in our schools, you don't talk to kids on Facebook from our schools. You can't do that now. Even though you're not a teacher, you cannot have a conversation with them on Facebook.
You're a contracted services person.
And that sounds a little harsh, but you just can't. You can't talk about when you're working for me. You can't walk by guys. You can't walk by and say, "Cute shorts." I could probably say that and get by with it.
But we've been teaching a long time.
Yeah. I mean, I'm their granddaddy. I'm the granddaddy figure.
From-
So, but you just can't do that. You open yourselves up.
And you are now known by your last name. You are Mr. or Mrs. So-and-so. Even if you're working at a band camp and you're a sophomore at Reinhardt and you're working with kids who are seniors, you need to be Mr. So-and-so, Miss So-and-so. And I know it's weird to hear at first because you think of that as your parent's name. You don't need to be on a first name basis, even if you're just working band camp. And you don't have to be mean about it. The kids are going to call, especially if you went to that high school. Did you go to Cherokee?
Yes.
What's your name?
Thank you, Mo.
So I might hire Nikki to come back and work band camp. But when she comes, she needs to be Miss Mo and not Nikki. And the kids are going to call her Nikki because there's still some kids there that know her. Jesse knows her. When they come and say Nikki, it's Miss Mo now. And you just say it with a smile like that, and the kids won't think twice. They'll go, okay, that's weird, Nikki. Oh, sorry, Miss Mo. And then they'll adjust within a day. It's more weird for you than it is to them. Kids want you to be an authority figure. Kids want discipline.
And as we segue into you being the band director, when it's time for you to hire those local instructors to come into your program, we can start segueing into some of these other categories. We have a sheet that we always hand out to all of our contracted instructors to come in and work band camp or come after school and do lessons. And it basically says these are things you can and cannot do. And it's what we've just said for you, but you have to be willing to share them as the head director with anybody that you come in so that anything that they do is above board, because remember, you're supervising them. If you're working for Garrick or Ms. Shane and you're in his building, he's ultimately responsible for anything that you do. So you've got to share that information, and these are some of the logistical things as we start talking about what you as a director are ultimately responsible for. It becomes a huge category. We're not talking about standing in front of the podium and conducting music. You're ultimately responsible for all the CEO kind of things and operation of your band program, where it's raising money, scheduling, planning trips, hiring contracted services people to come in. Then you've got to be able to make sure that they're going to act like you need them to act in your building. And we do. We have a piece of paper. They're going to call you by your last name. You're not going to socialize with them. They're not going to call you on your cell phone. They're not going to do Facebook with you. You just have to spell it all out for them. And I've had to let somebody go because they wanted to be friendly with one of my color guard girls, one of my percussion instructors. We just had to say, don't come back tomorrow. Because we heard that they were talking.
I've all done that.
Yeah, because we heard that they were socializing outside the band. I couldn't do it. He's got to do what I'm asking him to do.
And would you guys say that the non-music things are the ones that would get you fired or someone else? Music, unfortunately, sometimes these bad band directors, they keep their jobs forever, seems like. But they won't fire you. I want to add a couple things that you better do. You better go to staff meetings. You better do your paperwork. At our core director at school in Myrtle Beach, that it took them 5 years that they got rid of him because he kept forgetting to go to staff meetings. He kept forgetting to turn in his paperwork. And he was a young guy that was a good friend of my son, and